Hospitals are meant to run like clockwork. Every minute accounted for, every bed tracked, every patient a number on a screen, a name on a band, a line item moving from one stage to the next. The people who work there know it better than anyone. Keep it moving. Don't fall behind. The system only works if everyone stays inside their box. That's the rule. And on that morning, everything looked exactly as it should. My name is Daniel Ross. I'm a certified medical interpreter, American Sign Language, 14 years, and I have one rule, the only rule that matters in my job. Interpret everything, add nothing, be the glass no one sees through. That's it, that's the whole job. I don't advise, I don't comfort, I don't decide. I don't soften the bad news or sharpen the good. A doctor speaks, my hands speak. A patient signs, my voice speaks. I'm a conduit, a pipe. Water goes in one end exactly as it comes out the other. The moment I add my own opinion, my own warmth, my own judgment, I have failed. I have stopped being an interpreter and started being a person in the room. And there is no room for a person in the room. There's only room for the message. I believe that completely. 14 years, I never questioned it once. The morning started the way they all start. Badge in, lanyard on, phone to silent. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and old coffee. Monitors beeping somewhere down the corridor in that steady rhythm that means everything is fine. Nurses moving fast but not panicked. The good kind of busy, the controlled kind. I checked the board. 3 jobs lined up before lunch. A discharge consult on the 4th floor. A diabetes education session at 11. A follow-up in cardiology that would probably get pushed. Easy day. Predictable. The kind of day you don't remember a week later because nothing happened in it. That's what I thought. I want to be honest about something before I tell you the rest. I didn't see myself as part of any problem. I saw myself as the solution, the bridge, the good guy who shows up so a deaf person isn't left guessing about their own body. I was proud of the rule. I thought the rule was the thing that protected people. I didn't understand yet that a rule can be the exact thing that lets harm happen quietly, while everyone follows it perfectly. The hospital ran like clockwork that morning, smooth, silent, controlled. At least that's what everyone thought. The first job went the way first jobs go. A man in his 70s, hard of hearing, getting discharged after a hip procedure. His daughter was there. The surgeon talked, I signed, the man nodded. The daughter cried a little because that's what daughters do when their fathers are okay. It took 20 minutes. It was clean. Everyone said thank you. Nobody looked at me twice. That's the goal. When I do my job well, you forget I was ever there. Walking back to the interpreter office, I passed the nurse's station on the 2nd floor. A nurse I'd worked with a dozen times, Priya, looked up and grinned. Here comes the Google Translate guy, she said to the woman next to her. The other nurse laughed. Not mean, just tired shift laughing, the kind you do to stay awake. I didn't react, didn't smile, didn't frown, didn't correct her. That's the discipline. People do that. They reach for the easy joke. The translation app, the robot, the machine. I'd heard all of them. Can you just run it through your thing? Is there an app for this? He's basically a human subtitle. You let it slide off. You don't take up space. You're not a person in the room. Morning Priya is all I said, and I kept walking. She didn't mean anything by it. I want that to be clear. Nobody in this story is a villain. That's what makes it the kind of story it is. The diabetes session at 11 was routine. A young woman, newly diagnosed, scared the way newly diagnosed people are scared. The educator was kind. The patient asked good questions. I relayed them exactly, the fear in them and all, because the fear was part of the message and the message goes through whole. She left less scared than she came in. Good. That's a good morning. By 11:40, I was back in the office eating a granola bar and half watching the assignment board, waiting for the cardiology follow-up to either fire or fall off the schedule like I expected it to. Then the energy in the hallway changed. You can feel it before you can name it. A hospital has a baseline hum, and when the hum shifts, Everyone who works there feels it in their spine before their brain catches up. Footsteps got faster. Voices got shorter. A stretcher came through the double doors at the end of the corridor with two paramedics moving in quicker than routine speed, and the triage nurse met it halfway instead of waiting at the desk. That's the tell, when the desk comes to you instead of you going to the desk. I didn't know yet that it had anything to do with me. I just noticed it the way you notice a cloud cross the sun, a small dimmer, a shift from casual to focused. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a text from the interpreter coordinator. ED, now. Deaf PT, possible cardiac communication breakdown. They're asking for you specifically. I was already standing before I finished reading. The emergency department was loud in the way emergency departments are loud, which is not chaos, it's velocity. Everything moving fast in straight lines. I came through the doors, and a charge nurse I half recognized pointed me at Bay 7 without breaking stride. Thank God, maybe you can get something out of him. He's not cooperating. He's not cooperating. I'd hear that sentence, or a version of it, a dozen more times in the next 40 minutes, and every time it would be wrong, and every time the person saying it would believe it completely. I pulled the curtain back on Bay 7. There was a man on the bed, mid-50s, solid build, work hands, a wedding ring worn thin, gray at the temples. He was conscious, sitting halfway up against the raised back of the bed, and he was signing. Fast, big. His hands were going, and his face was doing the thing faces do when a person is trying very hard to be understood and failing. Around him stood a doctor, a nurse, and a tech. None of them were looking at his hands. The doctor was looking at a monitor. The nurse was looking at the doctor. The tech was looking at the door, probably for me. I caught the man's eyes and I lifted my hands so he could see them clearly, and I signed. I'm an interpreter. I'm here. I'll say everything you say. The change in his face. I've thought about it a lot since. It wasn't relief, exactly. It was more like a man who's been shouting underwater finally breaking the surface. His shoulders dropped half an inch. His hands slowed down to a speed I could actually catch. And what he signed was not the signing of a confused man. My chest hurt this morning, left arm too. It's better now, but it was bad. I told them I take a blood thinner. I have a card, it's in my wallet. They keep asking me the same questions and not waiting for the answer. I'm not confused, I'm scared. There's a difference. I said all of it out loud, word for word, flat, no editorializing, that's the rule. The doctor glanced over at me for the first time, not at the patient, at me. Okay, ask him if he's oriented. Does he know what day it is, where he is, why he's here? Note what happened there. The doctor didn't say ask him. I mean, she did say ask him, but she said it to me, looking at me, the way you talk to a phone. The patient was 18 inches from her. She turned away from the actual man and toward the device that produced the man's words. I signed her question, exactly as asked. The man's hands came up sharp and cert. Tuesday, the hospital, because my chest hurt and my arm went numb and my wife made me come. I just told the interpreter all of this. I keep telling people and it goes nowhere. I voiced it, every word, including the frustration, because the frustration was data, and data goes through whole. He seems agitated, the doctor said to the nurse. Not to me, not to him. Let's not get him worked up. We'll get an EKG, but honestly his presentation is soft and he's not giving me a clean history. Possible anxiety component. Has anyone confirmed the chest pain is even cardiac, or is this a panic thing? The nurse wrote something. The tech moved to set up the EKG, and the man on the bed watched all of their mouths move, all of these decisions about his heart happening in a language he couldn't see, and he looked at me. The one face turned toward him, and he signed something small. What are they saying? And here is where the rule started to feel like a wall instead of a window. Because the honest answer to what are they saying was, they are deciding you are anxious and difficult and they have stopped listening to you. But that wasn't a message anyone had spoken to him. The doctor hadn't said it to him. She'd said it sideways to the room, the way people talk in front of someone they've stopped seeing as a someone. If I signed it, I wasn't interpreting. I was editorializing. I was becoming a person in the room. I signed exactly and only what had been said aloud as direct communication to him. They want to do a heart test. They have some questions about your history. His hands dropped into his lap. He looked at me for a long second, not angry at me, just looking, the way you look at a door that won't open. That look is the first thing I couldn't unsee. Let me tell you what I started noticing, because the noticing is the whole story. It wasn't loud. It was never loud. It was a pattern, and once I saw the pattern, I couldn't stop seeing it, and the pattern was this. Every time the man tried to be a person, the room turned him back into an event. He signed that he took a blood thinner. He'd said it twice now, clearly with the name of the drug. It is a genuinely important fact. It changes what they can give him. It changes the whole picture. I voiced it both times, clean, loud enough, in plain words. I take a blood thinner. The name is on a card in my wallet. It went nowhere. Not because anyone was cruel. Because the EKG was being set up, and the leads were being placed, and a second patient 3 bays down had just started deteriorating and pulled half the attention out of the room, and a fact spoken through an interpreter in the velocity of an ED has a way of sounding like it can wait. It came out of my mouth, and it landed in the air, and nobody caught it because everybody was already running. So I said it a third time, unprompted, because he'd signed it a third time, and the rule lets me do that. The rule says I relay what he expresses, and he was expressing it again, harder. The nurse, threading a line, said without looking up, "We'll get to the meds list. We're a little busy keeping him alive right now." She wasn't being callous. She thought it was filler. She thought it was the anxious man repeating himself. She had been told he wasn't cooperating, and once you've been told that about a person, everything they do looks like not cooperating, even the most cooperative thing in the world, which is a frightened man telling you the one fact that could hurt him if you miss it. I have to tell you the thing I'm least proud of. For about a minute and a half, I told myself I was doing my job perfectly. He signs, I voice. They speak, I sign. The pipe was clean, water in, water out. If the message wasn't landing, that wasn't a pipe problem. The pipe doesn't get to care whether anyone drinks. That's what the rule had quietly turned into, somewhere over 14 years. A way to not be responsible for the silence I was relaying into. The doctor came back to the bedside. She looked at the monitor, not the man. EKG's non-specific. Honestly, this looks anxious to me. We'll trend him, maybe a low dose, something to take the edge off and reassess. A low dose something. And his blood thinner still uncharted because the fact had been spoken 3 times into a room, moving too fast to hear it through a voice that wasn't his own. The man was watching me, only me. Every face in that bay was turned toward equipment or paperwork or the door, and the one human being who was the entire reason all of them were standing there had exactly one face turned toward him, and it was the face of the machine. He signed slow now, tired, they think I'm crazy. And then, "You're the only one looking at me." That one I didn't voice because it wasn't addressed to the room, it was addressed to me, and the rule is clear about that. But it went into me and it stayed. That's the second thing I couldn't unsee. Not what he signed. The fact that he was right. I was the only one looking at him, and I was using the only pair of eyes on him to read his hands, not to defend him. Here is the part where I have to explain the rule, because the rule is the whole pressure of this story. The way a held breath is the whole pressure of being underwater. Interpreters do not advocate. We are trained on this from the first day. The instant you start advocating, you have inserted yourself into the medical decision, and you are not qualified to make medical decisions, and you have made yourself a variable in someone else's care, and variables get people killed. The rule exists for a good reason. The rule has saved more people than it has ever hurt. I have watched well-meaning family members help by softening a diagnosis until a patient didn't understand they were dying. The rule is not stupid. The rule is the thing standing between a frightened person and 100 other people, deciding what's best to tell them. Interpreters do not advocate. They do not editorialize. They do not become a person in the room. We say this like a vow. I had said it like a vow for 14 years. So understand what I was looking at. I was looking at a man whose heart might genuinely be in trouble, who had stated a critical medication 3 times, who was being quietly reclassified in real time from patient to anxious non-compliant difficulty and the reclassification was happening not through malice but through speed, and the one tool that could stop it was a sentence I was forbidden to say, because the sentence wasn't his, it was mine. It would be me, the pipe, deciding the water needed help getting where it was going. I want to describe the exact moment, because the analysis I'd want someone to make of this would ask for the exact moment, the clip. It wasn't dramatic. There was no alarm. The man simply put his hands down and stopped signing and turned his face toward the wall. He stopped trying. That's it, that's the clip. A person tries and tries to be a person, and the room keeps converting him into an event, and there is a specific moment where he does the converting himself, where he agrees to be the thing they've decided he is, where he stops being Walter, a man with a wife who made him come in, and becomes Bay 7, soft presentation, query anxiety, because that is the only version of him the room has been willing to receive. I learned his name was Walter 20 minutes later. In that moment, I didn't have a name for him. The room had given him a number, and I had given him correct, faithful, perfectly neutral interpretation. And between the two of us, we had built him a very clean, very professional silence. And I felt, for the first time in 14 years, the rule and the job come apart in my hands like something I'd been holding upside down without noticing. Because the job, the actual job, the reason the job exists, is so that a deaf person is not alone with their own emergency. And I was watching a deaf person be made alone with his own emergency, in compliance with every rule, including mine. I did one small thing first, the smallest possible thing. He had stopped signing and turned to the wall. The doctor was half out of the bay, already mentally in the next room. I stepped forward into Walter's line of sight, deliberately so he had to see me, and I held up my hands and I signed one word and held it. Held the shape a beat too long, longer than relaying requires, long enough that it wasn't relay anymore, it was contact. Wait, not interpreting anything. Nobody had said wait, that was mine. That was the first thing in 14 years that came out of my hands that belonged to me and not to a message. His eyes came back, off the wall, onto me, the smallest reopening of a door that had almost shut. It wasn't enough. One word never is, but it was the hinge. Everything turned on that one held sign, the same way the whole earlier story turned on one half step. Because once you've broken the rule by 1 degree on purpose, knowing exactly what you're doing, you've already decided the larger thing. The body just hasn't caught up to the decision yet. The doctor was leaving, 1 foot past the curtain. She'd said trend him, low-dose something, reassess, asterisk, and in a hospital those words have momentum. They become orders. The orders become a chart. The chart becomes the truth, and the truth becomes what happens to Walter's body in the next hour, whether or not it's right. Interpreters don't speak for themselves in the room. They don't stop a doctor. They don't insert a fact the patient gave the interpreter when no one was catching it. They relay. They don't reach out and take hold of the moment with their own 2 hands. That is the entire spine of the profession. I had bent it once already by 1 degree with one held sign, and the world had not ended, and a door had reopened a crack. This is the part where I stepped fully out of the pipe. I didn't raise my voice. I want that on the record because it matters to what kind of moment it was. I have heard that the loudest thing in a room is sometimes the quietest sentence in it, said by the one person who was supposed to be furniture. I said, "Doctor, before you reassess, he's told me 3 times he takes an anticoagulant by name, and that the card is in his wallet, and I don't think it's on the chart, and I don't think it's been heard, because it came through me and not through him." The bay went still in that specific way, not silence, a change in the texture of the noise. The doctor stopped with one hand still on the curtain. The nurse looked up from the line. The tech's head turned. And every one of them looked at me. The device, the Google Translate guide, the human subtitle, talking with my own mouth, about my own judgment, having clearly, openly, deliberately stepped off the wall and into the room as a person. I felt the rule break under me like ice. I want to be honest that it felt like falling, not like flying. I knew, even in that second, that I would have to account for this, that there are versions of this where I'm wrong, where the fact was charted somewhere I couldn't see, where I've inserted myself into something I had no right to insert myself into, and I deserve the consequences. The rule isn't stupid. I knew that even as I broke it. The doctor looked at me for one long beat. Then she did the thing that good ones do. She didn't argue with me about scope. She turned fully for the first time, away from the monitor and away from the door, and she faced Walter. The man, not Bay 7. She faced him. "Sir," she waited for me to sign it so he'd know it was to him. "What blood thinner are you on? And where exactly is the card?" I signed it, to him. His hands came up, and they were not the hands of an anxious man, and they had never been the hands of an anxious man. They were the hands of a frightened, completely lucid human being who had been trying to give one fact to a room for 40 minutes. He fingerspelled the medication. He pointed at the property bag hooked under the bed. Slow, clear, patient with us in a way we had not been patient with him. The nurse found the wallet. The card was in it, exactly where he'd said, 3 times, in a language no one had been turned toward long enough to catch. I watched the doctor read it. I watched her face do the thing a face does when the picture rotates 90 degrees. Soft presentation, query anxiety did not survive contact with that card. What they could safely give him changed. What this was changed. The whole shape of the next hour of Walter's life changed. And it changed because for about 9 seconds a doctor had stopped treating a man as an event, and a pipe had stopped agreeing to be a pipe. It moved fast after that in the good direction this time. Real workup, right precautions, the right people doing the right things with the actual facts. I'm not going to pretend I diagnosed anything because I didn't. And that's exactly the point of the rule I broke, and I won't dishonor it by overclaiming. I didn't save his life with medicine. I have no medicine. All I did was refuse one time to let a person be processed into a silence while I stood there relaying it cleanly. There was a moment, a small one that I keep. A senior physician came through, the one they call when the picture's changed and somebody needs to make the calls that matter. He was already up to speed before he reached the bay, the way the good senior ones always are. He checked Walter first, looked at the man, not the chart. A few questions rooted through me, but now they were rooted asterisk through asterisk me. The way water goes through a pipe instead of asterisk to asterisk me. The way you talk to an appliance. There's a difference. Walter felt the difference. I saw him feel it. Then the senior doctor's eyes came to me, just for a second. He knew. You could see that he knew exactly how the fact had finally landed, and exactly what rule had to bend for it to land, and exactly what it would have cost if it hadn't. He didn't say asterisk good catch. He didn't say anything. People at that level rarely waste words on the thing everyone in the room already understands. He just gave me a short nod, the small kind. The kind that isn't praised so much as acknowledgement, one professional to another, that something had almost gone very wrong and hadn't, and that we both knew which thread it had hung by. I gave the same nod back, and that was the entire conversation, and it said everything, and no one else in that bay knew what had happened. Because here's the thing, the rest of the staff went back to the Velocity. They had to. There were 11 other people in that department who needed them, and the system does not stop. The system cannot stop. That's not a flaw, that's the job. Most of them never fully clocked what had occurred in day 7. To them, it was a meds reconciliation that got sorted, a blip. By the next shift, it was nothing. By the next week, it wasn't even a memory. Only a few people ever held the whole picture. The doctor who turned around, the senior man who nodded, me. And Walter. His wife arrived while they were still working him up. I interpreted their first exchange, and then I did the thing the rule actually wants from me, the real rule under the rule. I got small again. I became the glass, because now there were 2 people in that room who needed to talk to each other and not to me. And the best thing I could possibly do, having just been loudly a person for 9 seconds, was to go back to being the window so they could see each other through. That's not a contradiction. That's the whole craft. Knowing the one moment to be a person, so that every other moment you can go back to being the pipe, and the pipe means something. Before they moved him, Walter caught my eye. His wife was holding his hand, and he was, by then, just a tired man in a bed instead of an event in a bed. He lifted his free hand a few inches off the blanket and signed one thing to me, small, no urgency in it now. You were the only one looking at me. Same words as before. The first time he'd signed them, it had been the worst sentence I'd ever read off anyone's hands because it had been true and I had been failing. This time he wasn't accusing the room. He was telling me something had been seen. I didn't voice it. It wasn't for the room. I just nodded, the small kind, the same nod the senior doctor had given me, and I understood for the first time in 14 years what that nod had actually meant when I received it. It meant, I know what you did, and I know what it could have cost, and you don't have to say it out loud. I've thought about that morning more than I've thought about any other shift in my career, and I've worked thousands of them. I used to believe the rule protected people. I still believe that. I want to be clear, because this is the part it would be easy to get wrong. I didn't learn that the rule was bad. The rule is not bad. The rule is one of the few things standing between vulnerable people and 100 well-meaning hands deciding what's good for them. I would defend that rule to anyone. I'd defend it tomorrow. What I learned was narrower and stranger than asterisk rules are bad. What I learned was that there is a specific moment, and it is almost never loud, and almost no one in the room sees it, when a person stops being treated as a person and starts being treated as an event. It happens through speed, not cruelty. It happens through procedure, not malice. Everyone involved is following their rules correctly, including the person whose rule is to relay and add nothing. And the sum of everyone correctly following their rules can still be a man turned to the wall, agreeing to disappear, while the machine in the corner reports his vanishing in clean, neutral, faithful language. The skill, the actual skill, the one they can't teach you in 14 years of certification, is learning to identify that exact moment, not the dramatic ones. Anyone can catch the dramatic ones, the quiet one, the one where a man puts his hands in his lap and turns toward the wall and the whole room reads it as compliance. That's the moment. That's the only moment that matters. And catching it is not about being faster or louder or stronger than anyone else in the room. It's about being the one person still looking at the person. Walter went home 4 days later. I know because the coordinator told me, not because I followed up, because following up isn't the job and I do, mostly, still keep to the job. The system kept running. It's running right now. It will run tomorrow exactly as fast as it ran that morning, because it has to, because there is always another Bay 7. I still have my rule, interpret everything, add nothing, be the glass no one sees through. But I added a second one that morning, a quieter one that lives underneath the first and only comes out maybe once a year. The way the first guard's half-step only comes out once in 1,000 still hours. It goes like this: be the glass, stay the glass, right up until the moment you can see, clearer than anyone else in the room, that a person is being turned into an event. And in that one moment, and only that one, stop being glass, be a person, say the sentence. Then get small again, and go back to being the window, because the window is how everyone else gets to keep seeing each other. Nobody trained me to know the difference. Nobody can. You only learn it the way I learned it. standing in a bright, fast room where everything looked exactly as it should, watching one man's hands go still, being the only one turned toward him, and finally understanding that being the only one looking carries a weight that no rule about staying neutral was ever big enough to hold. That was the difference, not speed, not authority, not the medicine which was never mine to give. Just this, I saw the moment he stopped being a person, and I refused one time to let the room have it. And on that ordinary Tuesday, in a hospital that ran like clockwork, that turned out to be the only thing that wasn't replaceable,